A grieving widower came to buy a horse, but found 2 children in a cage instead. He came for a horse and nothing more. Grief had emptied him, left him hollow. But fate was not finished. Beneath the barn's shadow, he heard the cry of a child, and in that moment, silence gave way to purpose. A man who thought he had lost everything found 2 souls who needed him even more. The horse was roped tight in the far pen, snorting and kicking at the dirt. But Andrew didn't flinch. He barely blinked. The animal's wild-eyed panic could not reach him, not after burying his wife 3 months ago and standing over a crib that would never be filled again. He adjusted his hat against the sun, the creases in his face older than 40 winters ought to allow, then knocked once on the slat door of the barn. It swung open without sound. A man stepped out, squat, sunburned, his shirt half-buttoned and stained with sweat. "You're late," the man grunted. Andrew didn't answer. He wasn't here for pleasantries. "You got the horse?" he asked flatly. The man jerked a thumb toward the pen. "Stubborn as hell, but strong." Andrew stepped forward, eyes narrowing. The horse was shaking, not from fight, but fear. Something about it twisted in his gut. Then he heard it. Faint. A thud, a shuffle, a choked sound, like someone trying not to cry. Andrew froze. The barn was quiet except for the horse's snorts and the wind dragging dust across the open plains. The sound came again. Not a rat. Not wind. It was human. Small. Hurting. He turned. "What's back there?" The man shifted too fast. "Storage. You're here for a horse, not a tour." But Andrew was already walking, boots echoing on old wood. The man grabbed his arm. Andrew's hand shot up and shoved him back, hard enough to stumble. He didn't speak. He didn't need to. He found the ladder behind a stack of old crates, half hidden by tarp. The smell hit him first. Urine, feces, fear. Then he saw the cage. And inside it, 2 children. One crouched low, no older than 8, arms wrapped around a smaller figure, maybe 5, who didn't even lift their head. Just a mop of hair, thin limbs, bruises where wrists had been bound. Andrew stared, breath shallow. The older one stared back, defiant despite sunken cheeks and cracked lips. "Please," the child whispered, voice shaking. "Don't let him shut the door again." The man behind him cursed. "Ain't your concern," he snapped. "They ain't yours. Belonged to a woman who owed too much coin. She's dead now. Just leftovers." Andrew turned slowly. "You selling them?" The man raised his chin. "Ain't illegal if no one asks." The heat in Andrew's chest ignited. Not anger. Something deeper. Something colder. He looked back at the children. The boy's eyes didn't plead. They challenged. "You'll walk away too," those eyes said. "Like the last one. And the one before that." Andrew reached for his wallet. "What's the price?" he asked. The man blinked. "For the horse?" "No," Andrew said. "For them." The man laughed, a low, dry bark. "What the hell do you want with 2 near-feral brats?" Andrew didn't answer. He dropped gold coins one by one into the dust between them. The clink of metal silenced the barn. The man stared, counted, snorted. "Fine, take 'em. More trouble than they're worth." He tossed Andrew a key, careless, as if unlocking a door didn't mean saving a life. Andrew caught it mid-air. He knelt beside the cage, fingers trembling for the first time in months, as he slid the key into the lock. It stuck, rusted. He forced it. The door squealed open. The girl, he could see now it was a girl, flinched so hard she nearly hit her head. The boy pulled her tighter. "Don't touch her," he warned. "She's mine." Andrew didn't move. "I'm not here to hurt her," he said gently. "Or you." The boy's jaw quivered, but he didn't let go. "Then why'd you buy us?" Andrew searched for the answer, but didn't find it in time. The girl's eyes opened slowly, green as prairie grass after rain. "Are you taking us away?" she asked. Andrew nodded. "Yes." The boy stood at last, legs wobbling. "Then hurry," he said, voice cracking, "before he changes his mind." They left the cage behind, but not the fear. Andrew lifted the girl into his arms, careful of her weight, far too light. She didn't protest. The boy limped after, barefoot, each step deliberate, like he didn't trust the ground wouldn't vanish under him. Outside, the sun burned bright. The man didn't follow. Good. Andrew didn't want to find out how far his control would stretch. He loaded the children onto his wagon without ceremony, covering them with a spare quilt. "What are your names?" he asked. The boy hesitated. "Logan," he said finally. "And that's my sister, Ellie." Andrew nodded once. "Andrew." He didn't offer more. Couldn't. Words still lodged like glass in his throat every time he thought of saying, "My wife is gone," or "My daughter never got to live." They rode for hours in silence, save for the creak of the wheels and the occasional cough from Ellie. Andrew watched her through the corner of his eye. She never once let go of Logan's hand, not even when sleep dragged her under. Logan didn't sleep. He watched the road, watched Andrew, waiting to see if kindness had teeth. By sundown, they reached the ridge overlooking Dry Hill, a town too small for anything but gossip and too mean to spare it. Andrew had land a few miles west, but he wasn't ready to bring strangers to the house his wife built. Not yet. Instead, he turned toward the line of trees by the creek and pulled up near the old smokehouse his neighbor had abandoned last spring. Still standing, still dry. He carried Ellie in and laid her gently on a pile of hay. Logan followed, arms crossed tight. "We can sleep in the barn," the boy said. "Don't need to stay close." Andrew didn't look at him. "It's not the barn, it's shelter." He lit a lantern. The shadows danced along the walls like ghosts who'd never left. Ellie stirred in her sleep, murmuring something too soft to catch. Andrew's chest tightened. She couldn't be more than 5. He handed Logan a cup of water. The boy drank slow, watching him the whole time. "You going to sell us again?" he asked. Andrew froze. "No. Everyone sells us." Andrew sat beside him. "I'm not everyone." The silence stretched long. Then Logan whispered, "You smell like someone who lost something too." The words cut deeper than any accusation. Andrew didn't reply, just set another log on the fire and let it burn. The night brought no peace. Ellie cried out once, fingers twitching. Andrew woke and covered her shoulders again. Logan never closed his eyes. By morning, the frost had crept under the door and rimmed the windows. Andrew saddled his mare and handed Logan a coat, too large for him. "We're heading to town," he said. "Need supplies." Logan eyed him. "She's not going anywhere without me." "Then bring her," Andrew said. No hesitation, no argument. Logan blinked, then nodded. They reached Dry Hill by noon, its streets half frozen and half mud. Townsfolk stared. Andrew had always been quiet, distant. Even now he walked with 2 ragged children at his side, and that drew looks, whispers. He ignored them. The general store was warm and bright. The clerk raised an eyebrow when Logan reached for jerky. "Put it on my tab," Andrew said. The clerk obliged, but asked, "That your kin?" Andrew didn't answer. They were walking out when a voice snapped like a whip across the street. "Hey!" Andrew turned. A tall man stepped forward from the saloon porch. Clean coat, too clean. A sheriff's badge gleaming like it had something to prove. "Those children with you?" he asked. Andrew's jaw set. "They are." The man nodded toward Ellie, who was hiding behind her brother. "Funny thing," he said slowly. "Heard a pair like them went missing down south. Rancher claimed they were his." Andrew felt Logan stiffen beside him. The sheriff took a step forward. "Might be I need to ask some questions." Andrew stepped between them. "They're not his. I paid for them." The sheriff frowned. "Paid? Like stock?" Andrew's eyes went cold. "Like human beings that needed saving." The sheriff stared, chewing on that. "You got proof?" Andrew said nothing. Logan's hand found his, for the first time. Andrew gripped it back. The sheriff opened his mouth, but what he said, what he did, was lost to the sound that came from behind the saloon. A scream, high, ragged, terrified. A woman burst into the street, dress torn, blood on her arms. "Help!" she sobbed. "He's still in there." Everyone turned, but Andrew didn't hesitate. He shoved Ellie into Logan's arms. "Stay with her," he said, and ran. Older than Ellie sobbed quietly, huddled beneath a table, clutching a broken locket in both hands. "Enough," Andrew said. His voice was not loud, but it cut through the room like a blade. The man turned, fist half raised, chest heaving. His knuckles were raw, lips curled in a sneer. "Ain't your business," he growled. Andrew's eyes flicked from the girl to the man on the floor, older, unconscious. blood streaming from a gash on his forehead. "You beat him near to death," Andrew said. "Over what?" "She's my daughter," the big man barked. "He touched her. I saw him. Don't need no law to deal with that." Andrew didn't argue. He looked to the girl. "Is it true?" The girl shook her head so fast her hair slapped her cheeks. "He's my uncle," she whispered. "He was trying to protect me. Papa drank too much. He always—" Her voice caught, broke. Andrew's blood turned cold. The man stepped forward, pointing a finger in Andrew's face. "You got no right." "I've got 2 children out there," Andrew said quietly, "and if any man ever raises a hand to them, I'll make sure his bones never see clean ground again." The big man paled, but his pride kept his fists tight. "Back off," Andrew said, and this time he meant it. The sheriff arrived then, flanked by 2 deputies. Too late, too slow. He took in the scene inside, shoulders sinking like a man already tired of the mess. "Andrew," he said, "I told you to stay put. Then move faster next time," Andrew muttered, stepping aside. He wasn't interested in watching the law sort things out. It never really did. Not here. Not where justice meant something different for every man with a badge. He returned to the street, heart still pounding, to find Logan standing tall and still, Ellie wrapped in his arms. Both looked up at him wide-eyed. "You left," Logan said. Not accusing, just stunned. Andrew knelt beside them. "I came back. You always going to come back?" Andrew didn't answer. Not because he couldn't, but because the question cut too deep and the answer wasn't ready. Instead he said, "Let's go home." Except he didn't know if he had one anymore. Back at the smokehouse, the wind picked up, rattling loose boards and hissing through the trees. Ellie had barely touched her bread at supper. Logan sat cross-legged by the hearth, sharpening a stick into a rough point with one of Andrew's old knives. Neither spoke much. Andrew cleaned his rifle, more out of habit than need. His mind wasn't on bullets or bandits. It was on what came next. You don't take 2 children from a cage and just raise them. You unpack years of pain with your bare hands. You carry them through storms they don't even know they're walking through. That night, Ellie had a nightmare. Her scream wasn't loud, but it was enough to wake them all. She clung to Logan, trembling so hard she nearly fell from her bed of blankets. "It was dark again," she whispered. "He was there." Andrew sat with them until dawn. In the morning, the smokehouse felt smaller, like the walls were breathing shallow alongside them. Andrew rose early and fed the horses, then set to boiling water for the morning meal. He barely noticed when Logan appeared at his elbow, watching. "You were going to leave her," Logan said. "Back at the barn. You were going to take me and leave her." Andrew blinked, caught off guard. "No," he said, slow. "I was." Logan didn't answer. He stared into the fire, like it might confess something Andrew couldn't. Later, they visited the land Andrew still called his own. The house hadn't changed. Its windows still intact, the fence still upright, though some rails sagged from snow and time. He opened the door slow, like waking an old friend from sleep. Ellie didn't want to go in at first. She gripped Logan's hand so hard her knuckles went white. "Whose house is this?" she whispered. Andrew stood behind them. "It was mine," he said. "It's yours now too, if you want it." Ellie peered up at him. "Are you a papa?" Andrew didn't flinch. "I was." "You can be again," she said, not as a plea, just a fact, and turned away. The inside was clean but untouched. He hadn't been back since the funeral. His wife's sewing basket still sat near the rocker, one of her scarves half knit and tangled. The cradle he built sat in the corner, empty. Ellie went to it like drawn, resting her tiny hand against the side. "You had a baby." Andrew's throat worked hard. "Not long," he said. Logan hovered near the door, eyes flicking between rooms, alert for danger that never came. He didn't trust peace. Not yet. The days passed slow, but not quiet. There were fences to mend, a coop to fix, firewood to stack. Andrew gave them small tasks, ones that made them feel useful. Logan took to the axe like he'd seen one in dreams, cutting with angry, deliberate swipes. Ellie helped in the garden, kneeling in dirt with a quiet grace. She hummed sometimes, when she thought no one was listening, but it couldn't last. On the 6th night, Andrew rode into town alone for feed. When he returned, the door to the house was open. The lamp inside had been knocked over, and Logan was bleeding. A gash ran across his forehead, shallow but messy. He sat against the wall, breathing hard, arms around Ellie, who was crying silently, her eyes wide with terror. "They came," Logan said. Andrew's heart dropped. "Who?" "Men from the barn," he said. "Said you didn't pay enough, said she was still theirs." Andrew knelt fast. "How many?" "2," Logan said. "Ellie hid. I tried to stop them." Andrew helped him up gently. "You did good," he said. "Real good." But his hands shook. Ellie wouldn't speak for hours after. When she did, it was only one word, over and over. "Don't take us back." Andrew didn't sleep that night. He sat by the door, rifle in lap, the fire gone cold. If they came again, he wouldn't talk. He wouldn't buy. He wouldn't bargain. They would not take these children. By morning, word had spread. The sheriff came up the trail by noon, slow and cautious. Andrew didn't wait for him to speak. "You hear what happened?" The sheriff nodded. "Men like that don't just vanish. They're part of something. Been rumors. Girls taken, boys sold." "Then stop it." "I'm trying." "Try harder." The sheriff looked over Andrew's shoulder to where Ellie sat on the porch, her arms around a straw doll Logan had made her. "They trust you," he said. "That's more than most folks get." "I'm not most folks," Andrew said. The sheriff handed him a folded piece of parchment. "Warrants," he said. "But not names, just faces. Someone's got to identify 'em. Might take time." Andrew stared at the paper. "I'll find them." The sheriff hesitated. "Don't do something that gets you hanged." "If I die," Andrew said, "they'll die too. So I won't." The sheriff said nothing more. Andrew watched him ride away, and only then noticed Logan standing beside him. "You're going after them," Logan said. Not a question. "I am." "Then I'm coming too." Andrew looked down. The boy's face was still bruised, his lips swollen, but his spine straight. "I need you here," Andrew said, "to protect her." Logan's jaw clenched. "Then you better come back." Andrew nodded. "I will." But neither of them believed in promises anymore. Andrew left before first light. The house was still. Shadows stretched thin as thread across the walls, but he lingered at the door all the same. Logan had wedged a chair under the front knob, like he'd seen Andrew do. Ellie slept on the floor beside him, her hand resting over Logan's heart, like she needed to make sure it kept beating. Andrew didn't wake them. He just pulled the blanket higher over Ellie's shoulder, then stepped into the grey. He rode hard through the valley, wind cutting sharp against his cheeks, the cold burning into his beard like frostbite from old memories. But he welcomed the sting. It reminded him he could still feel, still hurt. And hurting was proof he hadn't turned into stone entirely. He didn't stop until Dry Hill vanished behind the hills and the land dipped into rougher country, where trails gave way to whispers and the horizon stretched wide and lawless. The man he was looking for wouldn't be in any town. He wasn't hunting a name. He was hunting a trade. By dusk, Andrew reached a way station known more by reputation than name, an outpost tucked between nowhere and regret. 3 shacks, 1 trough, and a sign so faded it looked more like rot than paint. 2 horses were tied out front. Andrew tied his to a post and stepped inside the biggest shack without knocking. The room fell quiet. 4 men stared up from a card table. One had a scar across his throat. Another had hands too clean for someone out here. Andrew nodded once. "I'm looking for a man trades in things he shouldn't," he said. The scarred man leaned back. "Aren't we all? All this one sells children." No one spoke. Andrew placed the paper on the table, faces hand-drawn but clear. 2 of them matched the ones who'd come to his house. "They showed up at my place 3 nights ago," he said. "Left bleeding. Not bleeding enough." The man with clean hands frowned. "You law?" "If I was," Andrew said, "I'd have shot first." That got a chuckle. One of the others poured him a drink without asking. Andrew didn't touch it. "Word is," the scarred man finally said, "they ride with a trader goes by Lark. Real name's Darren, but no one calls him that anymore. He's got a camp 2 days northeast, moves a lot, sells damaged stock to ranchers who want hands that don't talk." Andrew nodded. "What about the ones too broken to work?" "Gone," the man said simply. "They don't get resold." Andrew picked up the paper, folded it, and stood. "If they come through again," he said, You tell them they already picked the wrong man's house. No one stopped him. No one offered help either. That was fine. He didn't want allies. He wanted blood. He camped near a dry creek that night, the stars sharp and watching. He didn't sleep, just leaned against his saddle thinking of the cage, of Ellie's voice with pleading, of Logan's hands clenched into fists too small to fight back, and of the rage building in him, a quiet, steady kind. The kind that didn't fade with time, but sharpened. By morning, his mare was restless beneath him, sensing the change in her rider. The land turned harsher with each mile, scrub brush and twisted trees, earth cracked and dry as old bones. Around midday, he spotted the smoke, thin, controlled. Not a signal, not a cookfire. A camp, carefully placed. Andrew dismounted a mile out, leading the horse into the shadows. He moved low, slow, the way his father taught him before war and whiskey took him. He crested a ridge and saw them. The camp had 6 tents, a wagon near the center covered in canvas, bars glinting beneath the folds. A cage, children inside, 3 of them. One sat listless. The other 2 clung to each other, eyes darting like rabbits. Men lounged around the fire, rifles nearby but not in hand. They weren't expecting trouble. Andrew counted 8, 2 more than he'd hoped. He waited until night. The fire burned lower. Some men slept. Others drank. Andrew moved like smoke, creeping to the edge of the camp. One man wandered off to relieve himself. Andrew met him in the dark, quiet and final. He hid the body beneath scrub, then stole the man's rifle and coat. Dressed in their stink, he moved closer, nodding to another sentry who didn't look too closely. Close enough now to hear the cage creak as a child shifted. A girl, maybe Ellie's age, whispering a lullaby to herself. Andrew's hands tightened. He slipped behind the wagon and used the stolen rifle to jam the axle. Then he crouched low and waited. Minutes passed, like hours. Then he struck. A shout, a flash. The rifle cracked once, just once. But it was enough. Chaos erupted. Andrew used the confusion to dart toward the cage, dropping beside the children. "Quiet," he said. "I'm here to get you out." One boy sobbed. The girl tried to speak but couldn't. Her lip was split. Andrew pulled a small crowbar from his belt and wedged it into the lock. Rust screamed. The cage gave. The children poured into his arms, weightless with fear. "Run west," he whispered, "until you see the ridge. My horse is tied there. She'll carry you." "Alone?" the girl asked. "Not for long." He turned back as one of the men spotted him there. Bullets tore through the night. Andrew rolled, ducking behind the wagon. The children fled, shadows darting toward freedom. Men shouted. 2 charged. Andrew took one down with a shot to the knee. The other slammed into him and they crashed into the dirt. Fists flew. Andrew tasted blood, smelled whiskey. He fought dirty. Elbows, knees, teeth if he had to. The man didn't rise again. Then a voice rang out. Calm, cold. "Andrew Harlo." Andrew froze. A figure stepped into the firelight. Tall, elegant, a coat too fine for dust and violence. Lark. His face was smooth, smile smoother. "Didn't expect you'd come calling yourself. Thought you might send the sheriff or a bullet." Andrew stood. "I figured I owed it to you in person." "You cost me merchandise," Lark said. "Twice now. They're children. They're debt," Lark hissed. "Unpaid. Unwanted. The world runs on currency, Harlo. Yours was grief. Mine is flesh. Who are you to say which is more useful?" Andrew raised his rifle. Lark didn't flinch. "You shoot me. They'll scatter. My men will burn every town looking for those kids. You want that?" Andrew's hands didn't tremble. "I shoot you. They scatter. But no one comes looking, because they're afraid I'm still out here." Lark smiled. Then Andrew pulled the trigger. The camp fell still. 2 men fled. The rest lay bleeding or stunned. Andrew didn't care. He took what weapons he could, cut the horses loose and poured lamp oil over the cage. He lit it with a match and didn't look back as it burned. He found the children huddled near the ridge, wide-eyed but safe. His mare stood waiting, patient and proud. He helped them up, one by one, and led them back through the dark. They reached his house near dawn. Logan was on the porch, eyes red from watching the trail all night. When he saw the children, he blinked hard. "More?" he asked. Andrew nodded. They didn't have anyone. Logan stepped forward. They do now. Andrew knelt beside Ellie. She was still asleep, arms wrapped around that straw doll, her cheek pressed to a worn blanket like it was the only safe thing in the world. He didn't wake her. He just sat beside the fire and watched the sky turn pale. But peace didn't last. By mid-morning, a rider appeared on the ridge, alone, fast. The sheriff. Andrew stepped out to meet him. "We've got trouble," the sheriff said without dismounting. Lark had a brother, meaner, more connected. Word's already spreading. He's not coming with questions, Harlo. He's coming with fire. Andrew looked past him to the children, Logan watching, the others too tired to speak. "Then we'll be ready. Children. Sold them. Beat them." "He got what he earned, that's so," the lead rider called. "You got something that belonged to him. Now it belongs to me. Send the girl out." Andrew felt Ellie's small fingers wrap around his leg from behind. She had come out silent as breath, barefoot despite the cold. "Don't," she whispered. "Please don't let them take me." He turned and lifted her gently, passing her back inside to Logan, without a word. Then he stepped forward, gun low but ready. "She's not going anywhere." There was a beat of silence. Then the rider spat in the dirt. "Burn it!" The man with the torch hurled it toward the barn, but before it landed, Andrew's rifle cracked once. Torch dropped, man falling with it. The horses screamed. Then the chaos began. The other 3 riders charged, guns drawn. The sheriff dropped one clean through the chest. Andrew rolled behind the woodpile, returning fire. The 3rd rider made it to the porch, leaping from his horse with a roar, slamming into Andrew's shoulder. They fell hard. Andrew lost his grip on the rifle, barely twisting in time to avoid a knife to the ribs. He struck with his elbow, once, twice, before the blade cut across his cheek. Blood blurred his vision. He shoved the man back just long enough to get his hands around his throat and didn't let go until the man stilled. The last rider turned tail, but Andrew, breath ragged, didn't chase. He'd made his point. Inside, the children huddled in the corner. Ellie cried openly now, and Clara held her close. The sheriff came in, blood on his shirt, but not his own. "That'll send a message," he said. "Or bring more," Andrew replied. They buried the bodies behind the ridge. Horses were sent loose. Andrew didn't want their blood on the land too. 2 days passed with no sign of riders. Andrew didn't relax. He knew men like Crowley's brother. They didn't strike once and slink away. They built storms, gathered allies, waited until your back was turned. On the 3rd morning, Eli didn't come down from the loft. Logan found him curled in a ball, shaking. "He don't talk," Clara said softly, brushing mud from her skirt. "Not since the barn, but he listens. He knows." Andrew sat beside the boy, speaking slow. "You're safe now. No one's coming to take you. Not while I'm breathing." Eli didn't reply, but he looked at him, and that was enough. That night, Ellie climbed into Andrew's lap without asking, her cheek pressed against his chest. "Will you stay, even after they stopped coming?" Andrew looked down at her, the child who had been thrown away like trash and somehow still found the strength to trust. "If you want me to," he said. She nodded. "I want you to be my papa." The words lodged like thorns in his heart. He hadn't heard them in years, hadn't expected to ever hear them again. "Then I will," he whispered. But peace had a short shelf life. A letter arrived the next morning, tied to the leg of a crow-bitten pigeon. A scrap of parchment scrawled in thick, furious ink. "You took what's mine. You killed my brother. You won't see me coming. MC." Andrew folded the letter and burned it in the fire. He didn't speak of it to the children, didn't tell the sheriff. But that night, he reinforced the traps around the perimeter, planted broken glass beneath the windows, loaded every weapon, twice, because he knew who MC was now. Matthew Crowley, the man who once ran every slave ring from Dry Hill to Bitter Hollow, the man who vanished after a warrant went south, the man who'd bought and sold more children than anyone dared count. Lark was his younger brother, a pawn. Matthew was the king, and now he was coming for blood. The land turned still before it broke. That's how Andrew knew. No birdsong in the early morning, no rustle of wind through the dry grass, just a silence that didn't belong. It had weight to it, like breath held too long. He stood on the roof of the barn with a spyglass, sweeping the horizon slowly. Logan climbed the ladder behind him, careful with his steps, boots barely making a sound. He didn't speak until Andrew lowered the glass. "You see him?" the boy asked. "No," Andrew muttered. "But he's out there." Down below, Ellie was helping Clara braid twine into one of the horse's manes, her little hands gentle but distracted. She looked up too often. They all did now. Even the laughter had changed. It wasn't joy anymore. It was defiance. A sound carved out of fear. Like if they stopped making it, the silence would win. Andrew had told them Crowley might come. He hadn't said when. He hadn't said how. Only that they would be ready. The traps around the land had been reset. Every window in the house reinforced with planks and nails. The barn had been cleared to hold the children if the house fell. The root cellar had a back exit hidden by an old chicken coop and a mess of logs that looked like firewood, but were really a tunnel marker. Still, Andrew knew none of it might be enough. Crowley wasn't the kind of man who fought fair. He came in pieces. The first sign was a merchant wagon tipped on its side, 3 miles east. Burned. Horses gone. Driver shot in the head and left with a coin in his mouth. Not stolen. Placed. The sheriff found it when he rode out that afternoon to check the trade trail. He came back tight-jawed, spitting dust in fury. "He's not hiding," the sheriff said, slamming the tin badge onto Andrew's table. "He's announcing himself." Andrew studied the coin the man had left. It was silver, tarnished black along one edge. Crowley's old marker. He'd used it before, back when he ran flesh markets from the old mines outside Silver Bend, before the governor's men rode west with warrants and left Crowley's name on every wanted poster from Red Gulch to Fallen Crossing. "You still want to fight him here?" the sheriff asked. "We can ride. Take the children. Disappear into the mountains. There's places to hide." Andrew shook his head. "We run. He'll never stop chasing. We stand. We might end it." The sheriff didn't argue, just picked his badge back up and pinned it to his shirt again. That night, Clara woke screaming. It wasn't the kind of scream that faded. It clawed its way through the walls, sharp and panicked. Andrew was at her side in seconds, rifle in hand before he even realized. She wasn't hurt. She sat bolt upright in her cot, eyes wide, sweat running down her face. "He was here," she gasped. "In the window, watching." "No one was here," Andrew said, though his own gut twisted. "The traps are all unbroken." "I saw him," she whispered. "His face." He smiled. Andrew stayed at the window until morning, rifle across his knees, eyes never blinking. The next morning, a note was found pinned to the barn door. No tracks, no footprints, just a knife through wood and a message scrawled in blood. "I see you, Harlo. I see your little orphans. I will make you watch." The children weren't told, but something changed in them after that. Ellie started carrying her doll everywhere, even to the privy, clutching it like a talisman. Logan stopped asking to help outside. Even Tom, who hadn't spoken a full sentence since they found him, started rocking himself when it got too quiet. Andrew and the sheriff rode out that day, following signs west. They found another farm burned to its bones, animals slaughtered in their pens. No survivors, just a handprint on the back wall, smeared in soot and ash, child-sized. "He's not just sending a message," the sheriff muttered. "He's trying to make us question which children are ours." Andrew looked at the mark. "No," he said. "He's trying to make the children question if we'll still be here tomorrow." Back at the homestead, Logan was waiting. He'd organized the others, armed them with sticks and old shovels, even rigged a bell to the front gate using a kettle and some string. "We heard a whistle," Logan said. "Just once, out near the trees. Then it stopped." Andrew nodded. "Good work. Keep them inside after sunset." That night, it rained, for the first time in weeks. Not a soft rain, but a cold, angry one, the kind that pounded on the roof like fists and flooded the earth till it ran slick and dark. Andrew sat in the main room, rifle close, eyes on the door. Beside him, Ellie had fallen asleep, curled in his coat. Then the bell rang. Once, then twice. Andrew was up in a flash, motioning for the sheriff, who came from the kitchen. Both men moved fast, quiet. They reached the porch just as lightning split the sky. There, standing at the edge of the clearing, was a figure. Not moving, not speaking. A girl. Andrew's heart nearly stopped. She looked 7, barefoot. Her dress was soaked through and torn. He stepped forward. "Who are you?" She didn't answer. Then she lifted her head, and Andrew's blood froze. It wasn't just any girl. It was Eli's sister, the one Crowley had taken first. "Help," she whispered. The sheriff raised his shotgun. "It's a trap." Andrew took one step closer. "Where is Crowley?" The girl turned her head, and another bolt of lightning lit the trees behind her. Figures. Moving. They came fast. Andrew fired first. The sheriff followed. Bullets tore through the storm. One man fell. Another made it to the porch but was driven back by a swing of Andrew's rifle. The girl screamed and dropped to the mud. "She's real," the sheriff shouted. "She's real." Andrew hauled her. Andrew scooped her up, tucking her under one arm and dragging her back into the house. The door slammed shut behind them, just as two bullets punched through the wall, just inches from Logan's head. "Basement," Andrew ordered. Now. The children ran. Ellie held tight to her doll. Clara helped Eli, who had frozen at the sound of the shots. They poured into the root cellar. Andrew and the sheriff stayed behind, reloading. Then, quiet. Too much of it. Andrew peered out the window, raindrops streaking the glass. They were gone. All of them. Except the girl. She sat on the rug now, staring at the fire. "Where is he?" Andrew asked. She didn't speak, just rocked herself. "Where's Crowley?" Her eyes lifted slowly. "He said you'd ask that." Andrew stepped closer. "And what else did he say?" She hesitated, then quietly, "He said he'd burn your house last, after he makes you dig all the graves." The wind slammed a shutter open outside. The trees swayed. The trap had only just begun. The storm passed, but Crowley's shadow didn't. It hung in the trees, in the silence between thunder, and in the blood-flecked mud outside Andrew's door. By morning, the girl was sleeping on a cot near the hearth, curled beneath a quilt Ellie had pulled over her. No one knew her name. She hadn't offered it, and no one had pressed. Her arrival had shattered something, left the children skittish, sleepless, and watching the windows like prey. Andrew stood in the barn, tying knots with shaking hands. "You trust her?" the sheriff asked from behind him. Andrew didn't answer right away. The rope bit into his palm. "She's a child," he said finally. "So were the ones Crowley broke and made into spies," the sheriff replied. "So was Ellie." Andrew turned the knot, not forgotten. "You saying we turn her out?" "I'm saying Crowley doesn't fight like a man. He fights like a sickness, gets into your blood before you realize you're dying." Andrew looked through the slats in the barn wall toward the house. "She's staying," he said. "She's not the one we're fighting." But even as he said it, he wondered who she was now, and what she might have been before. That afternoon, Clara came to him with a question that shouldn't have mattered. "What color were your wife's eyes?" Andrew looked up from where he was oiling the hinges on the cellar door. "Brown," he said. "Dark," Clara nodded. "Mine were too once. My mama's were green. I forget sometimes. I think that's the worst part. You remembering means they mattered." "No," Clara said softly. "It means I'm losing the pieces too slow." Andrew didn't have an answer for that. Not one he could give. They buried another body the next morning, not one of Crowley's men. This one was old, dead before Crowley ever got near. A traveler, found on the edge of the ridge. Rifle missing, shoes gone. The sheriff figured he'd been used as bait and then discarded. Andrew just stared at the man's hands. They were bound. Crowley was sending messages again. That night, the girl finally spoke her name. Wren. Just one word. No last name, no explanation. She whispered it to Ellie while they curled up near the fire, then fell asleep mid-sentence. Andrew watched them from the table, notepad open, sketching layouts of the land, counting escape routes, rethinking every inch of the house like it was a chessboard and every child a king he had to protect. "Why are you writing all that?" Logan asked, standing beside him in the low light. "In case I don't make it," Andrew said. "You'll need to know how to finish the game." "I don't want to finish it without you," Logan said. Andrew reached over and gripped the boy's shoulder. "That's why I'm trying not to lose." But Crowley didn't want a game. He wanted fear, and he was good at it. The following evening, one of the horses returned alone, covered in blood, not its own. The sheriff spotted it first, limping toward the fence, reins dragging, eyes wild with panic. Andrew recognized the markings on the saddle. It belonged to a rancher 2 valleys over, a good man who kept to himself, never raised a hand in anger. Andrew rode out at once, alone, ignoring the sheriff's protests. He found the ranch burned, not fresh, not new, a day or 2 old at least. The bodies had already been buried, but the markers were twisted. No names, just numbers carved into wood. 6:54. A countdown. Andrew turned his horse hard and galloped back. When he returned, he gathered the children and lined them up against the back wall of the house. "You all know how to get to the root cellar?" he said. They nodded. "If I ever tell you to run, you do it. No questions, no waiting. You run until your legs give out. Then you crawl. Understand?" Another nod. Some slower than others. "Good." But Ellie didn't nod. She stepped forward and held up her hands. "You're not sending us away," she said. "I'm sending you to safety." "No," she said, fierce. "Now you are safety." Andrew knelt in front of her, heart tight. "Then I'll give you every second I can." She wrapped her arms around his neck, sudden and silent, and Andrew held her like he had nothing else in the world, because that's what it felt like. The countdown wasn't metaphor. The next day a stranger arrived, not on horseback, by foot, clothes clean, hands soft, no gun. He walked right up to the gate and stood there smiling. "I'm here to talk," he called out. Andrew stood in the doorway. The sheriff stayed inside, shotgun cocked and steady. "Talk fast," Andrew said. The man grinned. "Mr. Crowley sends his regards." Andrew didn't flinch. "He can keep them. He wanted me to deliver a message." Andrew crossed the yard, boots heavy in the dirt. "I'm listening." The man smiled wider. "Tomorrow, sundown, he'll come himself. Says, if you're still here, you're part of the problem." "I always was," Andrew said. The man chuckled. "He says to tell the children goodbye." Andrew struck him then. One blow, just enough to send him spinning into the dust. "Tell him," Andrew said. "I've been saying goodbye for years. If he wants to hear it in person, he can come die on my porch." They didn't sleep that night. The sheriff stayed up, carving notches in spare boards, fitting them into slats to reinforce the back of the house. Andrew sat outside, oiling his rifle. Logan cleaned the knives. Ellie carried water like a soldier. Even Clara and Wren helped scatter broken glass under the windowsills. It wasn't about stopping Crowley. It was about making him bleed first. The hours bled slow. By late afternoon the next day, clouds gathered. Not the kind that brought rain. The kind that just looked like morning. The first riders appeared at the edge of the field. Then more. 6-1 and 04. By sundown, 20 men surrounded the homestead. Crowley rode at the front, hat low, smiled cruel. Andrew stepped out onto the porch, rifle in hand, staring down at the man who turned children into coins and pain into business. "Andrew Harlo," Crowley said, dismounting. "I expected less grey. I expected more fight. Instead I find a farmer with orphans and a death wish." Andrew didn't move. "You're not touching them." Crowley looked around, eyes scanning the windows. "They're not yours," he said. "You think that matters? You think blood makes them safe?" "No," Andrew said. "But I do." Crowley laughed. "You're just a man. One, and I brought 20. Then they're outnumbered," Andrew said. That flicker, the brief flash in Crowley's eyes. Not fear, not yet, but curiosity. Andrew didn't give him time to think. The first shot dropped the rider to Crowley's left. Logan, from the loft. The second took another. Sheriff. Chaos erupted. Andrew rolled from the porch as bullets tore through the front of the house. Screams. The sound of glass shattering. Horses rearing. He didn't check who screamed, only hoped it wasn't high-pitched. They fought like men with nothing left to lose. Crowley's men surged forward, but every foot closer was a mistake. The traps held. The glass shredded boots. The oil Andrew had soaked into the outer walls lit with a spark, sending flames licking along the perimeter, forcing the riders inward, closer, where the children had been moved to the barn. And the barn now held something unexpected. Logan lit the fuse. The small charge Andrew had buried beneath the shed wasn't meant to kill, just distract. The explosion sent a roar across the field, and in the smoke, Andrew moved. He tackled one rider, shot another point blank. Crowley saw him and turned. They met halfway. Andrew's fist slammed into Crowley's jaw. Crowley hit back with the butt of a pistol. Blood flew. Neither fell. They grappled in the dirt, snarling like animals, until the sheriff's shotgun cracked, and Crowley went still. Not dead, just stunned. Andrew pulled him up by the collar. "Call them off," he said. Crowley smiled, blood in his teeth. You're still going to lose." Andrew didn't respond. He just struck him again. Crowley dropped. The riders began to retreat, one by one, the ones who could. Andrew stood over Crowley, chest heaving. "Next time," the sheriff said behind him. "Don't let him speak." Andrew nodded, then turned and walked back to the house, where Ellie was waiting in the doorway. She didn't cry. She just opened her arms, and for a long second, Andrew let himself believe, maybe, just maybe, the worst was over. But behind them, Crowley's eyes opened, and he smiled. They didn't bury Crowley. The sheriff had wanted to shoot him clean through the head before the man even stirred from the dirt. But Andrew shook his head and said one word: "No." Then he ordered rope, iron, and a spare wheel axle from the barn. What they built wasn't much, just a makeshift cell reinforced with steel hooks and bolted to the corner of the smokehouse, with nothing but a damp patch of ground beneath it. Crowley sat slumped inside it now, wrists tied behind his back, ankles chained. He didn't speak for the first few hours, didn't struggle, didn't beg. He just watched, as though this part, the part where he was the one in the cage, wasn't the end of his story at all. "You sure about this?" the sheriff asked, standing over the man as the sun bled low in the sky. "Keeping him alive after what he's done?" Andrew said nothing at first. He leaned against the fence post, arms crossed, watching Crowley with a stare that felt carved from stone. "Dead men don't talk," Andrew said finally. "And I need to know how far this goes." The sheriff scoffed. "You already know how far. You saw it with Lark. You saw it in the girl. You saw it in the barn. I need to hear it from him." Inside the house, the children stayed close. Too close. Clara hadn't left Wren's side since the firefight. Eli still wouldn't speak. Ellie, who had once held herself like she didn't know how to be a child anymore, had crawled into Andrew's bed in the middle of the night and curled up without a word. "I had a dream," she whispered. Andrew stroked her hair. "What kind of dream?" "You were gone." He didn't say it wouldn't happen. He didn't make promises he couldn't keep. Instead he said, "If I'm gone, you run. If you can't run, you fight. But don't ever give up. Not even for me." Ellie nodded into his chest. "I wouldn't." By morning, Crowley had begun to hum. Not a song Andrew recognized, just a low, tuneless hum, rising and falling like the sound of a snake beneath the floorboards. Andrew stood in front of the cage, watching him through the slats. "You're waiting for something," Andrew said. Crowley tilted his head, a slow grin pulling at his cracked lips. "Always. You've already lost." "Have I?" Andrew didn't blink. "You came here thinking I'd fall, thinking I'd run. You thought the children would break. But you lost every man you brought. And you're in a cage built by the people you called weak." Crowley's eyes narrowed. "You think this ends with me?" "No," Andrew said. "I think it ends with the truth." And then, for the first time since he was dragged to the cage, Crowley laughed. Not a wild, unhinged sound. Just cold, quiet satisfaction. "You think I ran this alone," he said. "You think the market lived and died with Lark and me? You think there aren't a dozen more like me waiting, selling, trading, hunting? You killed one link in a chain, Harlo, but the chain's still wrapped around this whole territory." Andrew felt it, like a stone in his gut. "You want to protect them?" Crowley went on, nodding toward the house. "You can't. Not all of them. Not forever. Sooner or later, someone will take them. Maybe not today. Maybe not this year. But eventually." Andrew stepped forward, crouching just outside the bars. "I used to believe that," he said, "that no matter what you built, the world would tear it apart. But you know what I learned from those children?" Crowley didn't reply. "I learned that what's broken can still fight back." That night, Andrew rode to Fallen Crossing. He didn't tell the sheriff where he was going. He didn't wake Logan or Ellie. He left a note, simple and short. "If I'm not back in 2 days, burn the smokehouse and take them east." The ride took half the night. He didn't stop, didn't speak, just rode until his horse foamed at the mouth and the lights of the town blinked through the trees. There, he went straight to the church. It wasn't faith he was after. It was the records. Inside, a grey-haired woman sat at a desk, lantern low, ledger open. She looked up as he entered. "I need a name," he said. "And I need it now." She raised an eyebrow. "Not much to go on." He slid a crumpled parchment across the desk. A letter Crowley had once sent, unmarked, unsigned. But the handwriting matched the note on the barn. She studied it. "There's a banker," she said after a pause. "Out east. Name of Western Pie. Quiet man. Richer than God. He owns half the freighting lines in every iron shipment north of Lark's territory. No kids, no wife. Pays large donations to the church, though." Andrew leaned in. "He ever buy land near Bitter Hollow?" She nodded slowly. "Not land, but he funded an orphanage." Andrew's stomach turned. "Where is he now?" "Last I heard, he's riding west. Supposed to open another trade house just outside Dry Hill." Andrew didn't sleep that night. He rode hard back home, mind burning with the realization that Crowley had been just the beginning. The children hadn't just been stolen for cruelty. They'd been sold, laundered, shipped like goods. And men in clean clothes and shining boots had paid handsomely for the silence. By the time he reached the ridge overlooking the homestead, smoke rose. At first his heart stopped, fear pounding like thunder. But it wasn't fire. It was steam. From the still the sheriff had fired up. A signal. One Andrew had taught him in the early days. Trouble, but not from outside. He galloped down the hill and reached the house just as Logan threw open the door. "He's gone," the boy said. "Crowley, the cage is empty." Andrew pushed past him into the smokehouse. The cage had been torn open from the inside, not with strength, with help. A broken padlock lay on the floor. The iron bar pried loose. A set of footprints in the ash, bare feet, small. He turned to Logan. "Where's Wren?" "She was with Ellie this morning. Then she said she needed air." Andrew's hands clenched. She let him out. The sheriff arrived, winded, pistol drawn. "North Trail. There's Prince. Heavy and fast. He's not riding." Andrew turned to Logan. "Stay here. Lock the doors. No one opens anything until I'm back." "But—" "Logan," Andrew said, "you're the man of the house till I return. Keep them safe." He rode again, for hours, through mud and fog and thicket, until finally, in the clearing beyond the riverbed, he saw them. Wren sat on a fallen log, head down. Crowley stood beside her, breathing hard, blood on his mouth, where a knot of wood had caught him during the escape. "You should have run farther," Andrew said, stepping from the brush. Crowley turned. "Missed the ending?" "I'm giving you one last choice," Andrew said. "You surrender. Face trial. Or I finish this now." Crowley sneered. "You think there's a court out here that cares what men like me do?" "No," Andrew said. "But I do." Crowley drew his pistol. Fast. Andrew fired faster. One shot. Crowley dropped. Dead. The silence after wasn't relief. It was heavy. Final. Andrew stepped toward Wren, whose face had crumpled. Not in grief, but in confusion. "I thought he was all I had," she whispered. "I didn't know who else to believe." Andrew knelt in front of her. "Then start here. Start with the people who never asked for anything from you, who never sold you, who never lied." Wren nodded slowly, tears streaking her dirt-caked cheeks. He led her back through the trees. The storm was over, but justice had only just begun. They buried Crowley with no name, no prayer, no stone, just dirt and silence. Wren hadn't spoken since Andrew pulled her from the clearing, and the others kept their distance. Trust, once shattered, didn't return easy. That night, Andrew offered a choice: go east and run, or stay and fight. One by one, they chose to stay. Weeks passed. Fences were mended. The barn rebuilt. Ellie started smiling again. Even Eli spoke, a quiet thank you as he helped plant spring potatoes. Then strangers started arriving, scarred, quiet, hungry for something they couldn't name. Andrew opened the door to each. No questions, no conditions. One evening, a woman knocked, a boy at her side. "They said you help people like us," she whispered. Andrew stepped aside. "You're home now." The world outside hadn't changed, but inside this house, something had. They weren't just survivors anymore, they were family, and family didn't turn anyone away.